That's all I have to say. Okay, see you later, guys. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announcements. Good morning, everyone. I just woke up, and it sure looks like I just did. A little coffee, got my notes, got my feed here, everything. Thank God I shaved yesterday because I looked like a mountain man. A damn mountain man. Anyway, coffee, please. I have a triple espresso every morning. Good morning, everybody. First of all, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame disappoints a lot of people. I mean, every single year. Hello. Hi, all. Oliver, you're the first guy. You're the first in the house. You can't win with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They nominate people too late. Sometimes when they bring people in, they're already dead. So that's not good. But let's start with the category, the performance category for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this morning. And again, yes, I just woke up. I'm interviewing Mark Farner of Grand Funk, formerly of Grand Funk, and Kenny Loggins today. So I got to do a lot of research. Foo Fighters, Go-Go's, Jay-Z, Carole King, Todd Rundgren, and Tina Turner. Tina Turner was no surprise. Todd Rundgren said he didn't care. Carole King looks at it as an honor, I'm sure. Foo Fighters will be there. I talked to Kathy Valentine of the Go-Go's late last year, and we talked about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and she said it's going to happen. You know, I wasn't sure how she looked at it because Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull told me this year, he said, oh, it's an Americanized thing. I don't really care. So there you go. And David Knopfler of Dire Straits said that he heard that his brother, Mark, was going to go perhaps if he went, but they didn't go, and they had to pay it all for themselves. Anyway. So again, the performance category this year for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's the 36th induction. Sorry, I just woke up. Foo Fighters, Go-Go's, Jay-Z, Carole King, Todd Rundgren, Tina Turner. There you go. And in, Kate Bush did not get in. Shaka Khan, New York Dolls, Rage Against the Machine. Musical Excellent Award, LL Cool J. Oh, thank you for the super chat. That's very kind of you. Thanks, John. Good morning, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's very kind of you. You're always very generous. The Musical Excellent Award goes to LL Cool J. Billy Preston, of course, who was a fifth Beatle at times. Randy Rhodes, of course, known for his work with Ozzy. The Early Influence Award this year for the 36th class is Kraftwerk. Gil Scott-Heron, who was a sort of a soul jazz poet. Charlie Patton. Charlie Patton died in 1934, but he was the father of Delta Blues. So what's your thoughts on the 36th class of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? In excess, I know, Paula. A lot of these people are going to, I know diversifying everything is one of the things they want to do. They want diversity in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And a lot of people don't look at anybody who's R&B or urban music in general or rap as part of this, but you can keep fighting this all you want. That's their criteria. That's what they do. So every year, I mean, and you're allowed to not like it. I'm not saying that, but that's it. Look at the people who are in the performance category this year. Foo Fighters. Some were saying, well, they just became eligible, you know, and I mean, I understand that, but Foo Fighters are a pretty big band. Go-Go's, goes without saying, is one of the first major girl bands to get into the top 10. Jay-Z, that's where a lot of people have problems. Yes, of course, Billy Preston had a great Nothing from Nothing Means Nothing. I used to wait for that song to get on the radio. I used to love that song. And of course, he had many hits. Todd Rundgren, will Todd come? He says he doesn't care. He said just a few weeks ago, he doesn't really care about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He certainly deserves to be there. Tina Turner, no surprise. Carole King, well, what are you going to say? Tapestry just turned 50 this year. I got a lot of quotes from a lot of people. When I interview people, I will send them a list of, it's not the list that's circulating on Facebook. This is a really long list. Some artists have said it's overwhelming when I send them the albums that are turning 50 this year. And the album that people wanted to comment on the most, the albums, Led Zeppelin 4 and Carole King Tapestry. I got more quotes for those two albums that are turning 50. The year of 1971, it was Ian Anderson. I asked him, I said, what was it? Aqualon's turning 50. And we talked about that an awful lot. And it's on our podcast. Check it out in the description, not of this video, but of any other video we've got. You can listen to the podcast. But he just said there was a lot of competition in 1971. He says, we had to button up our shirts, man. We had to do that. By the way, my wife hates this lumberjack jacket. She hates it. She says I look like a lumberjack. When in Rome, it's a lumberjack jacket. It makes you look like a lumberjack. Let's look at the Amit Ergen Award. Clarence Avant, he's a music executive. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. I was not familiar with him. Music Excellent Award, LL Cool J. Billy Preston, Fifth Beatle, and Randy Rhodes, of course, one of the greatest guitarists, died too young. Worked with Ozzy. Early Influence Award, Kraftwerk. I knew eventually they'd get in there. They'd start cutting up the categories a little bit more. Gil Scott Heron, who was he died in 2011. He was a jazz, sort of a soul jazz poet. Charlie Patton, who died in 1934, father of Delta Blues. So it's a well-rounded list of, and no, someone has asked me the other day, are you on the voting? No, I'm not. I'm not. I would gladly go on as one of the as a voting member, but Kate Bush did not get in this year. Shaka Khan, Rage Against the Machine, New York Dolls. I had a few problems with New York Dolls going. I know they came in and blasted, but they weren't. They were sort of an early influence in that music, but I wasn't into the punkish kind of. David Johansen, of course, went on to big things, but Iron Maiden. A lot of people are going to be talking about Iron Maiden. They got nominated for the first time. Dionne Warwick, Mary J. Blige, and the Go-Go's, but not the Dave Matthews Band. Looking at some of your comments. Iron Maiden, yeah, Judas. Yeah, the Priest didn't get in. Should be nominated, should be in. They seem to have a problem with the more metal-y kind of, I'm not a metal fan at all, but I can certainly appreciate the type of music they are. We just released a thing. We never usually go down this category, but we just released a thing on Rock History Book, our sister channel, on 5 musicians who died on stage. And for the most part, 4 of the 5 were metal, hard rock. A lot of people went in, and the video's doing really well, of course, because people want to know who these people are. They died or collapsed on stage, but everyone was saying, how come you're doing this? Because you don't really like metal. I'm going, yeah, I report on what's to be reported on, right? And if I get a big metal band for an interview, I'll interview them. I'll do my research. A lot of times, the big ones I know a lot about. But you got to report the stuff. Well, I understand the feeling you have about the Go-Go's. I just saw your comment. But at the same time, the Go-Go's made a difference, not only for ladies' bands, but I mean, they were a highly successful band, in that area. The Bubblegum Hall of Fame. Yeah. I know what you're saying. Again, in the performance category, the Go-Go's will be there. I mean, when I talked to Kathy Valentine, their bassist, I last year, she said, we will get in, and we know that. And of course, here they are. A lot of folks who are rockers have problems with Jay-Z. I'm not surprised Jay-Z is in. Foo Fighters, of course. I'm sure Dave Grohl I'm sure the band will be there. Carole King, I'm sure she'll be there. I mean, we're living in a different world now. And the ceremony's October 30th at, I think, at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, Cleveland, of course, in Cleveland. And this is the class, a 36 class. I'm not going to make this a long a broadcast because I've got Kenny Loggins interview today, and Mark Farner of Grand Funk. And I think some of you know already. I do all my research just before I get on. So I hope the house doesn't catch on fire, because then I won't be able to do. I'd like to have it fresh in my mind. That's why I do it. So Todd Rundgren, who has said he doesn't really give a beep. So I doubt he'll come. Carole King, maybe. I mean, again, it's October 30th, and we will be living, I think, in a slightly different world by then. Yeah, Grand Funk. Well, I'll ask Mark Farner. I'm talking to him today. I'll ask Randy. I'll ask him today of what his thoughts are on that. And could there be a reunion, because there's such bad blood in that band, and a lot of folks not looking at, well, a lot of bands, right? We just interviewed the guys, three main guys from Little River Band. And I think it was Graham Goebel who told me he'd be honored to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So they there's no original members in that band of all, like the heyday of the Little River Band. And Grand Funk, I mean, there's two guys, but the main songwriter and the main guitarist, well, they're only real guitarists in the three-piece. And the guy who sang most of the hits, Mark Farner, is not in the band anymore. Would they get back together? I'm going to ask Mark that today, as far as that's concerned. So, Todd Rundgren, Carole King, the Go-Go's, Foo Fighters, Tina Turner, 36 class inductees. And, of course, in the Musical Excellence Award, LL Cool J, okay, Billy Preston, who worked with the Beatles, of course, and a lot of folks. Great solo career. Happy about Billy Preston. Unfortunately, he's not around anymore. Randy Rhodes, another person who's not around anymore. Early Influence Award goes to Kraftwerk. They've been nominated numerous times, never got in. Gil Scott-Heron, who was a soul jazz poet, but he died in 2011. And Charles Patton, who's the father of Delta Blues, died in 1934. I like when they do that. Ask him about the song "The Railroad." I will. I'll go back and look at the notes of these and add them to the comments. But there you go. I wasn't sure how many people we'd get in this time of the morning. Of course, it's what time is it here? It's 8:20 here. We're on Mountain Time. Let me share a coffee with you. Hope you're having your coffee. I don't know where everyone is this morning, but I love doing live broadcasts. I never thought I'd do these broadcasts, but when news breaks, sometimes it's a lot easier just to come on and you can comment on the news. And by the way, John, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate that. Any donation, we always put the donations into our advertising budget. Oh, you're in Saskatchewan. What time zone? Saskatchewan? I haven't been there in so long. Charles Beaudin, great job. That's my brother. Charles Beaudin, what time? It'd be what, in New Brunswick? 8, 9, 10, it'd be 11:21. Hi, Tim P. You're in New Jersey. How you doing? David, nice to have you on here. Basically Melody. It's 8:20. Oh, okay. You're on the same time zone as we are? See, I'm learning things. I don't know. Watching from Ottawa. Hey, Stephen. Oh, Sean. Sorry, in the morning, being 61, when I get up in the morning, my eyes are always a little blurry. Does that happen to you guys, or am I dying? So let me go through this again, because a lot of folks, they'll see my live. We'll do Ask Mark Farner about Shea Stadium. I did last time we talked to him about they sold out Shea Stadium faster than the Beatles. But here's the difference. I'm going to ask him a lot of the similar questions because I don't have him on camera the first time, right? And getting an interview with Mark, and I have a good relationship with his manager, who also manages a few other people that I want to talk to. Hello from Poland. Hey, nice to have you out there. Greats from Germany. Hey, Daniel. So again, let me just go through this, because some folks say when you do a live broadcast, you go off topic and you go on for an hour, and all of a sudden you're not talking about. So we'll always kind of circle back. Foo Fighters, Goo Goo Dolls, Go-Go's. See, it's early in the morning. John's brain hasn't kicked in yet. Vroom, 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 vroom. Jay-Z, Carole King, Todd Rundgren, and Tina Turner in the performance category. The Amit Erdogan Award goes to Clarence Avant. I think I'm saying that right. I don't know. He's a music executive. Congratulations to him. He's still alive. I think he was born in 1930 or something. Musical Excellent Award, LL Cool J, Billy Preston, Randy Rhodes. I was happy for Billy Preston because I was always a fan of his solo work, and of course being with the performing with the Beatles, like wow. And Randy Rhodes, of course, with most notably with Ozzy Osbourne. The Early Influence Award is interesting because Kraftwerk gets an award because Kraftwerk have been nominated numerous times. Gil Scott Heron, who's a soul jazz poet, but he died in 2011. And another person who's been long dead is Charlie Patton, who's the father of Delta Soul, Delta Blues, not soul, died in 1934. So it's nice to get recognition. I mean, there's no way that was going to be recognized since he died in 1934, of course. And the ceremony, by the way, is October 30th at Rocket Mortgage Field House. Is that what it is? In Cleveland. I don't know the place. I'm not familiar. I've never been to Cleveland. Let's see some comments. Tim P, thank you. I appreciate that. Did Mark Farner get... I didn't see that comment. It came and went too fast. I'll see if I can pick it up on here. Sometimes I can pick it up on here. There I am. 2 John Beaudins, that's way too much. One's enough. Okay, I'll see your comment. Did Mark Farner get conned by the other two for signing the contract? I don't know. I'm going to ask him again. Hey, Matt from California, how you doing? Matt, you've been on here before. You'll recognize your name. Johnny Aldrin, love the show. Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, the thoughts on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, this is something you're never going to There are certain artists that, don't you have artists that when you look at them, you're going, that's not really an artist. I don't know. I don't know why I don't consider them really a musical artist. And there's always artists like that. And that's an opinion, and you can easily be wrong, and I could easily be wrong. But when I look at LL Cool J, I'm going, well, yeah, he's not a bad actor, but I know his music got him into that. But it's just because his music never did anything to me. It doesn't mean he's not a musician. I just don't look at him that way. But of course he's a musician. Of course he is. Like when I get the Disney princesses on there, I know Miley Cyrus is a great talent. She really is. But I have no time for the Miley Cyruses of the world. I don't have time for, after she did that thing on the awards show, I remember going, I was so disgusted by that. I'm going, that's not sexy. I don't know what that is. That's just totally disgusting. And at that point, it's you saying, that person is dead to me. I don't care what Miley Cyrus does in her life anymore. That's just something I'm going, wow, that was like the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in music. And I'm no prude, man, trust me, at all. And the Demi Lovato's, where they're known for other things more than music, of going, I've got this going on. And, the social media thing. Some artists are very famous just because they're big on social media. And you go, there's like 100,000 people that sing just as good as you, but they don't look like you. So they're never going to be there. So you have all kinds of things like that in music. You get lucky breaks people. I used to call Jennifer Lopez the luckiest person in the world. But she's got talent. It's just that I don't have time for that I need to be in the spotlight all the time people. I was doing my radio show last night and I saw she's with Batman, Ben Affleck again. I'm going, I don't care. Come on, stay home. I don't care. But then you get people that some of the people who are into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like I think the Foo Fighters certainly belong to be there. I think they're a great band. They contributed an awful lot, and they stood on their own. Dave was in that other band, Nirvana, of course, but he's really reinvented himself. What he did was not easy. And he ended up doing funny videos and always had a sense of humor. And Dave I'd love to interview him. He's just an entertaining guy who just gives a lot. The Go-Go's, I know some people weren't sure about it. I wasn't sure how well the Go-Go's would do. I interviewed Kathy Valentine last year. And I was wondering, I was really looking forward to it. She's one of my favorite members. I read her book. Her book and I've said this before, her book is more or just as interesting before she joined the Go-Go's. That part of her life was amazing. I highly recommend her book. And then she got the Go-Go's and a lot of stuff happened as well. But the part before she joined the Go-Go's, amazing. What a life she's had. She should be dead, but she's not. And I asked her about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, of course, and she said, well, it's going to happen. We know it will happen. She says, I don't mean to sound presumptuous, but I know it'll happen. I'll look at your Mark Farner. Jay-Z, you know what? The rockers might not appreciate his music, but I think Jay-Z, if you're going to open the span and be diverse, Jay-Z obviously belongs to be there. But you're allowed to say, crap on that, because everyone has a rightful opinion. Carole King, Tapestry turns 50 this year. I'm sure she's very honored. She's gotten a lot of other honors throughout her life as far as the longevity of her career, the body of work. Todd Rundgren doesn't give a hoot. He has said that. I doubt he'll go. I don't know who's going to go because the ceremony's on the 30th, October 30th, by the way. Tina Turner, there's always been speculation that she is not in good health. I'm not sure if that's a hoax or not. I've never received anything concrete. I talked to Holly Knight maybe a year ago, who wrote The Best and a few other hits for her, wrote for The Heart and so many other people. And she hadn't talked to her in a long time. So just the degrees of separation here, when you look through this. Ahmet Ertegun Award. Remember, that's why Zeppelin got back together a few years ago to honor his memory. Clarence Avant, he's a music executive, he gets that. I'm not familiar with him at all, but he's still alive. I looked on Wiki this morning, and he was born in the 30s, but if I remember correctly. The Musical Excellence Award goes to LL Cool J again. Billy Preston, well-deserved. Congratulations, you have played with the Beatles. You're okay in my book. And his solo career was amazing. What a body of work. What a keyboard player. Wow. Randy Rhodes, no one's going to argue about Randy Rhodes being in here. And if you do, come on, man. What a great guitarist he was. Died too young. And, of course, his work with Ozzy. A lot of people were introduced to him on a larger scale. Early Influence Award is interesting. Kraftwerk has been nominated several times. Can you tell I'm starting to wake up a little bit? Because I went, what? Rock and roll? Because the first thing I do when I get out of bed is I'll look at my phone. Is there anything happening in rock and roll that I have to report? Did anybody die? A lot of the times if someone passes away, I will not go on camera. Like Tawny Katane the other day. I thought, I'm not going to go on camera. I just woke up. Early Influence Award, Kraftwerk. Like I said, nominated several times. Never got in. Gil Scott-Heron, soul jazz poet, died in 2011. Charlie Patton, who is the father of Delta Blues, and he's long dead, died in 1934. So, when you look at it, it's a well-rounded class. Iron Maiden fans are not going to be very happy. Loggins and Messina, I'll ask Kenny Loggins today what he thinks about that. I'll ask him. It's a good question. Thanks for the reminder. Mary J. Blige, Dionne Warwick nominated for the first time. Kate Bush, I'm sad to see Kate Bush didn't get in, but Kate was one of those, she broke out into the mainstream, but I don't know, looking back, and I was a big Kate Bush fan until probably the first 3 albums. And after that, she went a little, for me personally, she was a little too out there, even though I loved her last album. Oh, I loved her last album. Kate Bush will eventually get in on some, whether it be early influencers, they'll get her in. But not this year. Devo, hold on a second. Shaka Khan, New York Dolls. I was kind of about the New York Dolls. Rage Against the Machine, and they were again nominated and didn't get in. This is the 36 induction class. I'm going to answer a few questions. If anybody wants me to repeat these, I will. Just let me know. Paul Revere and the Raiders, yeah. I saw them in concert, actually. At the Winter Garden Showroom in Edmonton in the 80s. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Ted Nugent. I think he's freaking crazy, but I think he should be in there. Styx, Iron Maiden, Johnny, all good choices. Priest, Scorpions. I don't know how to say your name, Beaufort. I'll say that. So happy for Tina Turner, the Go-Go's, Carole King, Jay-Z, LL Cool J, Billy Preston, Gil Scott Heron, Kraftwerk, congratulations. Yep. I don't think War is, by the way, Joe. I don't think they are. Anybody know if the band War are in? I don't remember. Scorpions. Yeah, I hear you. They don't seem to like metal. The Guess Who, I would say the Guess Who will get in and will at least be nominated in the next few years. I've been trying to track down Burton Cummings. I talked to Randy Bachman twice a few years ago, but at that point, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame wasn't in my frame of reference, so I didn't ask him about that. I'm guessing Randy would probably say it'd be nice. Burton's more, he's more of a raw interview. I've never interviewed him, but a lot of my colleagues have, and he kind of says it. Recently he's had posts on his Facebook about his father, Fanny. There's another one. Speaking of girl bands. So he has he's sort of a devil may care. He doesn't suffer fools kind of interview. And those are the best interviews. Jethro Tull, yeah, well, Ian Anderson told me, Johnny, that more or less he doesn't care. This is just like a month and a half ago. Good morning, guys. Spanish God-ish. Hello. They don't like prog. Genesis is in there, though. And Yes is in there. But those are the ones you'd expect. There's some crap on my iPad. I don't know what that is. I think Priest will get in eventually. Storm Cop 55. Good morning, sir. I think a lot of who's getting up? Who's getting up? Who has a face like mine right now, just waking up? I like to moisturize twice a day. With a face like this, you have to moisturize twice a day. This is a triple espresso from the Nespresso machine. It's not bad. It's all I got right now. Shannon's having a shower. She's getting ready to go into a meeting. I'm getting ready for. Anyone have questions before we wind up? Questions for Kenny Loggins. Yes, I'll ask him about Loggins and Messina getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Jim Messina is already in there to Buffalo Springfield. Kenny Loggins or Mark Farner of 10 Years After are not in there, no. Anybody have questions for Kenny Loggins? First interview with Kenny Loggins. Second interview with Mark Farner, formerly of Grand Funk. The main man in Grand Funk, who's not even in Grand Funk anymore. Crazy. I think, here I'm guessing, I'm going to ask Mark Farner his thoughts on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and if they got in, would he and the guys get back together? Right? So, yeah, I think that. Why do you think he hates Jim Messina? When I interviewed Jim Messina a few years ago, right over there, my autistic daughter was at the table. She was making a lot of noise. Jim didn't notice, and if he did, he didn't say anything. But one person said, I think something's wrong with your dog, and he didn't mean any harm by it because my daughter stims. She goes like that, right? And anyway, I had to tell him without hurting his feelings. I'm going, well, actually, that's not a dog. That's my autistic daughter. And she just makes noise sometimes. And it's the first, I didn't really think, I don't hear her anymore making those noises. So for us, we just got on there and I did an interview with Jim Messina. Jim was great. The only thing that Jim said about Kenny Loggins was that first meeting when Kenny Loggins came to his house, he came without a guitar or any music. And Jim kind of thought, well, you're not prepared. But he did choose to work with Kenny, and eventually that became a duo, of course, as opposed to Dan Fogelberg. He had to choose one. And he chose, even though Kenny's songs weren't ready yet, he thought. So there you go. I'll do that, Johnny Aldrin. I'll ask that as well. I've never interviewed Kenny Loggins, so again, there's that thing I have when and if I'm going in for a second interview, like Mark, I could do that without even doing any research. And Kenny, of course, I know all the big songs, but everyone asks them those questions, right? So with an interview, you kind of want to go in, like for instance, Jerry Beckley of America, when I interviewed him. It was at night. I just finished doing my afternoon drive show at the station, and we were presenting America. Him and Dewey were coming into town, Dewey Bunnell. And I started the interview by saying, and it's a little known song, all of America's albums had H's on they all had, Heart, Holiday. And then Dan Peake left, and their first full album without Dan after the live album was called Silent Letter, and H is a silent letter. So anyway, there was a song on there, I think it was released in 79, called 1960. I was born in 1960, and songs about he and his brother and transitions and his reputation's on the line. So I started the interview with Jerry saying, and it was true, I don't lie to an artist. I said, by the way, that song meant a lot to me because I was born in 60, it was released in 79, this song, and it meant a lot to me because it was one of those rite of passage songs of going to what's the next step. Will I ever get into radio? Have I been talking through my butt all these years of going, I'm going to become a radio guy, And right away, he told me, he was very honest about why he wrote that song. It's a beautiful song. If you don't know it, look up America 1960. It's got everything you like about America in one song. And so we got along incredibly well. We just had this nice, long 1-hour interview. It's on the site if you want to look it up. It's on this channel. So you look at interviews that way, right? And I thought, how can I get a little closer to him so he trusts me a little bit more? And we talked about Dan leaving the band. Shortly after that, Dan Peake's brother, Dan's dead now, contacted me and said, well, Dan would like to talk to you. He wants to give you his side of the story. I went, yeah. So unfortunately, Dan's interview's got a lot of hum on it. So it's been cleaned up a little bit. I might just put it up, but everyone's going to bitch about the phone hum. I've got 5, I think, phone hum interviews. They were all done around the same time. Yeah, I saw America. I introduced America on stage. Got a picture with him backstage, Jerry and Dewey, and some contest winners. But I've got Ravi Shankar. I've got Bill Brubeck, the Take 5. I've got, who else? Andrew Gold, Dan Peake, and someone else. They all have phone hum. Bad phone hum. Andrew Gold was a great interview. It was an hour long. Okay, why did he write the original Pooh's Corner? What's his favorite book as a child? That's a great, great question, Glenda. Gordon Lightfoot. Again, Gordon Lightfoot will get in. I think probably will be nominated in the next few years. Gordon doesn't have a lot of years left. I hate to say that when I mention that. Someone asked me, because we do 5 artists who, in this case, the last one was 5 artists who died on stage. Someone said, why don't you do 5 artists we can't believe they're still alive? I'm going, I can't do that to people. I won't do that to, if an artist would say that, I'm going, and then someone else said, why don't you do 5 artists that are most likely to die? I'm going, I'm never going to do that. Ever. But anyway. Yeah, the America, you're right, Johnny. That's a great tune. Greg Clark. I have no... I'm not going to go there. Go-Go's before Grand Funk, I know, but... I don't know. It's the voting body. I'm trying to figure out why certain bands aren't in and other bands are. It's almost like they say, let's have a pop band. Let's have a pop band that did a little something different there. And they have a one slot for each one. And they look at, I think they look at the audience. I don't think they look at necessarily, well, I was going to say they look at Evelyn Everyone and Joe Lunchbucket, but they don't, because if that was the case, every single person who's on there would be rock, would be still relevant. You know, it's almost like they look at Spotify and say, who's really popular these days still? But they don't do that. It's because they'll go back. Sorry, they'll go back. What time is it here? It's research time, 8:43. Yeah, I've got to go at 9 because I've got Mark Farner at 11 my time. Foo Fighters, no surprise. I don't think there's a surprise with the Go-Go's. You're always going to be able to say, oh, what? Grand Funk's not before the Go-Go's? That's apples and oranges to me. You know, do they look and say, we have someone in this slot, someone in that slot, and at the very least, I think they should look at people who might not be here in 5 years. You know, Ian Anderson, like I've said before, I talked to him and he said, well, I don't really care. It's kind of an Americanized thing. It doesn't really matter to me. Todd Rundgren has said he doesn't care. Todd Rundgren's not going to go. I doubt it very much. Tina Turner, how's her health? And the awards again are October 30th in Cleveland. What's this going to look like? What kind of world are we going to be living in October? I would think a lot safer. You know, if Rory Gallagher is not in. Yeah, someone had just said that a while ago. And that's weird. So, again, when I look at interviewing people, I see Nazareth Humble Pie, Foghat. Nazareth I'm a little bit more surprised with because of the era that they were big in, you know, the early mid-70s, and they had hits in the 80s. They still had longevity, even though Pete Agnew's the only guy left. Daryl Sweet died. Manny's gone. Manny, of course, produced some albums for them and other artists as well. And Dan McCafferty, I interviewed him and Pete, not together. I tend not to interview, well, Dan McCafferty's not in the band anymore. He released a solo album last year. Molly Hatchet, I would be surprised, even though they're a great Southern band and they'd be flirting with disaster, y'all. But I bought the first album, The Grassroots, sooner or later. Okay, guys, how many people are on here? Oh, 111. Maybe we should stay on for a little bit longer. There is that thing. I don't know the rhyme or reason of how they come up with it. I've said this many times. I'd love to be part of the voting. I mean, I've been in radio 38 years, and I have a very successful YouTube channel. And I'd love to be on the governing body. Hint, hint. No. I'd like to see how it works, but I don't think people who vote necessarily know how to frick it works. You know what I mean? Squeeze, I don't know. I mean, they were a highly influential band compared to the Beatles. You know, their writing duo was compared to the Beatles. So, Greta Van Fleet, nah, they're okay. I don't love them. I like them. Blood Rock, oh God, that'd be a huge surprise. I only introduced my friend Lenny, who's a minister now, introduced me to Blood Rock in '79. It was kind of a drawn album. I think it was written in red letters, if I remember correctly. It was some green on the cover. I don't know. I remember thinking they were very interesting as a band. Tears for Fears, I think Tears for Fears will be nominated in the next few years. It's kind of, okay, there's one. I like the Go-Go. I never bought a Go-Go's album, but I like the Go-Go's. And it was an honor to talk to Kathy Valentine a few months ago. But I'm a way bigger Tears for Fears fan than I am but that, okay, someone talked about Grand Funk. Marty Kane, you're right. I think, Marty, you've been on here before. It would be nice to have the original three guys get back together. So, we'll see. I didn't know Warren Ham was in Blood Rock. Was he? Wow. I'm talking to Joseph Williams, by the way. I've already talked to Steve Lukather last week. I talked to his son Trev last night for like 2.5 hours. Big news coming up. Big news coming up about that band next week. Not great news, big news. I'm talking to Joseph Williams on Wednesday, I think, next week. Yeah, and we're trying to get some other big ones. Melanie should be there. Melanie's not in there. I just talked to Melanie's manager or publicist or whatever a few months ago. She circled back and said, "Hey, do you still want to talk to Melanie?" I went, "Duh, yeah, of course I'll talk to Melanie. I love Melanie. Love Madrugada. That was a great album. Iron Maiden and Little Feat. Those metal bands, all the big metal bands will get in, but it's almost like they have room for maybe one every 2 years or something. Because you can't look at Foo Fighters be their rock band, right? Foo Fighters this year, Go-Go's, Jay-Z, Carole King, Todd Rundgren, Tina Turner. It is a firm, great group. They'll always toss in a Jay-Z in there, right? You have to look at it. What causes pain in life? Not accepting what is. They're always going to have R&B, blues. Supertramp's another great example. Sky Theater, you're right. Supertramp I would have had in there a long time ago. But I'm a huge Supertramp fan. People ask me, who are your favorite bands growing up? Supertramp and Genesis and Yes and Toto and Supertramp and Supertramp. What? We've got 109 people. I have this rule that sometimes if I have like 30 people on and it's time to go, Asia will get in. I'm not sure when, though. John Wetton's long dead. He died a few years ago. They should call it the Music Hall of Fame, but they don't call it that because Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just is a better name, and it brings more people in. I noticed that I put rock in the keywords of my videos, and I have to only when it's about rock, because YouTube will get you. But when I have Angel Martinez, yeah, Supertramp Breakfast in America was my favorite album from '79, and '79 was a big year. In Through the Outdoor, Pink Floyd, The Wall. There was a lot of great albums that year. Tusk. Even though Tusk was one of those, what? After Rumors, they released this? And they had like 2 albums worth of music. And I liked it. It's grown on me through the years, but I remember being wildly disappointed with Tusk. Even though I love the title song, I remember going, that's so cool. Duran will get in. Golden Earring will get in. Crowded House, I don't think anytime soon. I was just talking to Christopher Ward, who co-wrote I haven't put that interview up yet, co-wrote Black Velvet for Atlanta Miles, who he was dating in the beginning. He told me, he says, he's dating Atlanta Miles, beautiful girl. She says, you want to come in? He's going, oh yeah, I'm coming in. So Christopher goes in with her, and she hauls out her guitar. She wanted to play him some songs, and he was very impressed with the songs. Wasn't quite there yet. And anyway, he told me Neil Finn, speaking of Crowded House, one day was backstage with his band, and someone, I'm not sure who, said, you'll want to take this. And Neil says, who is it? He says, you'll want to take this. So he picks up the phone. It's Mick Fleetwood. Mick Fleetwood, he says, oh, hey, Mick Fleetwood, this is great. Do you want to join Fleetwood Mac? And that was it. There was no warning. He didn't know what was happening. This is from Christopher Ward. Roger Hudson, well, Roger Hudson will never get in as a solo artist because he didn't have that kind of solo career. But as a member of Supertramp, and Rick Davies, the other main songwriter in Supertramp, has multiple myeloma. So that's usually a killing disease. Not a lot of people get through that, but he's had multiple myeloma for a lot of years. And most of the time, people don't last a long time with that. I've known one of my daughter's care workers. Her dad had it. He lasted, I think, a year. And I mean, treatments are better now. But there's not Valcade. I forget that there's a drug that's really good for that. And I'm sure that Rick Davies is on that. And he's still alive. If Rick Davies is still alive after all these years, they had to cancel that last Supertramp tour because of that. I talked to John Halliwell, about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, and he said he's doing okay. But that's what he's going to say, even if he wasn't, I'm sure. Dan Fogelberg, yeah. Definitely deserves to be there. Dan Fogelberg's not in there, right? Now and then, because I do so many lists and so many videos, I'll kind of lose track of who's in there and who's not. And I think that if anyone has a list out there of who's in and who should be in, oh man, send it to me. It'd be a lot easier. And I keep everything now on my MacBook. When I do interviews, on this side of the screen is all my questions. That's why I don't look down anymore, because people were saying, stop looking at your iPhone. I'm going, I'm not looking at my iPhone. I'm looking at my questions. Why would I be checking my iPhone when I'm doing an interview with a big artist? Come on. But it was just because they saw me looking down like that, and I went, oh, I'm going to put all my questions now on a notepad, a note, whatever that program is. So there. Greg Clark says something very poignant here. Tough part is separating popular music from important music. Not to pick on Bon Jovi, as I bought 2 of their records, but it's top 40 rock. Whereas a band like Alan Parsons is a true pioneer. Greg, well said. One of the best comments today. It's that thing where they almost want to have, okay, you're an innovator, but are you an innovator that's important enough that it'll click in with people? But then they'll pick someone from the like the award, the early influence. Well, no, Music Excellent Award. You're going to get people who are going to say, why the heck is LL Cool J on there? But he's been nominated several times. Billy Preston, don't argue with Billy Preston. I mean, if you play with the Beatles, you're okay. And the solo career was amazing. Randy Rhodes with Ozzy and his other stuff. Early influence, there you go. You get Kraftwerk, and I can understand that. Kraftwerk's been nominated several times. Gil Scott-Heron, who's a soul jazz poet, but he's been dead since 2011. Charlie Patton died in 1934, the father of Delta Blues. And then you get a Music Executive Award. Well, it's not. It's the Ahmet Ertegun Award, rather. Clarence Avant. I'm not familiar with him, but he is still alive. I think I mentioned a while ago he was born in the late 30s or the 30s sometime. So you're always going to get that. But anyway, great comments. Thank you. Before I did an interview, sometimes I'd see people doing interviews saying, hey, I'm talking to so-and-so. Do you have any questions for them? And I'd always think, when I was early in my radio career, oh, do your own research, man. What the hell? Why are you asking the audience for questions? But then one day, maybe 2 years ago, I'm not sure when it was, I thought, I'm going to try that. I'm going to see what kind of questions I get from you guys, the audience. And some of the questions were, of course, the general, tell us about that song, what's your process in writing? Those are audience questions that you're not surprised with. But now and then someone would say something that was so poignant, and I'd go, wow, I would have never thought of that. And Greg Clark, you're one of those guys who kind of like zeroes right in, and says something that I've tried to explain today, but not in as clear form as you. Well, Nova, they're not going to close down the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's not going to happen. It's a major money-making organization tied in with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is in Cleveland, right? Jeff, you wrote Toto, Kansas, Derek Trucks, UFO. I think all of them will get in eventually. I was almost surprised that Toto, and there's certain bands that Kansas is performing again, which is nice. Well, Lita Ford, had some success. Michael Schenker, about my, that's from David. I had a 7-minute interview with Michael last year, and he was in Germany at the time. And I also talked to Uli John Roth for like an hour, speaking of that band. And Michael couldn't hear me and he was very angry. But he tried to, he said, I'm sorry, but I can't hear your questions. I'm just going to give you my spiel, okay? He said something like that. So he talked for 7 minutes about the way he looks at music and stuff. And I went, Michael Schenker, he's such a legendary guitarist. And it's too bad, but Uli John Roth was great. Uli's just fun. He's just a fun guy. Love his accent. Well, both their accents, right? I don't know what happened with his investigation of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Rick. I don't know. The Guess Who will get in the next few years. I find that hard to believe. But there are so many people that should be in. Would it be great in a perfect world say, everybody's in? Everyone who is at that certain level gets in. Let me see your comment here. Angel, no, it was Nova. Oh, Charlie I think it's that Q or O, I can't see. You don't, Rock History Music, I don't know if we have masks anymore. I'll have to check. I don't go into that store very often. That's kind of one of those stores that it just, when the bundle ends, it just restarts itself. And sometimes I'll go in, I'll go, oh, look at this, we made $300 on, but it's because I haven't checked in a couple of months and I should go in there. But it runs by itself. It's one of those things I'll have to check. Grand Funk and Sticks, Don D, you're right. And Joe, the Guess Who, BTO, that'd be 2 for Randy Bachman right there. Again, I talked to Randy twice in person and we had to cut it short and he says, here's my phone number, call me on Tuesday. He and Neil Young were going at the time to see the Shadows reunion in England. And he said, I'll be back on whatever day it was. And this is like 10 years ago. So I called him, he picked up the phone. He says, I said, what time? He said, just call me, I'll be ready any evening. Because he was off tour at the time. And I asked him, are you going to go out on the road? I've said this before on this channel with Burton Cummings. And he said, well, it depends. Burton wants $2 million for every million I make. And I said, so you're not going to go? And he went something like, well, that's $1 million. That's a found million. That's like, I'll use that. I want to buy more guitars. He's got a warehouse of guitars. Rick says, Randy Rhodes being recognized is great. What about Ozzy as a solo artist? Massively successful. He has, you're right. Susie Quattro. We're working on a Boomer the Movie, working on a Susie Quattro interview right now. Okay, we've got 114 people watching, but unfortunately, I've got 2 interviews. Last chance, folks. Do you have any questions for Mark Farner, former lead man of Grand Funk? Yes, I'll ask him about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Or questions for Kenny Loggins. 2 interviews today. I usually don't do 2 big interviews like that in one day, but you don't say no to Kenny Loggins or Mark Farner. I got Mark first, and then out of the blue, the publishing company who works for the promotion company who works with Kenny just said, do you want to do it on Wednesday? I went, yes, sure, no problem. And they handle a lot of big people of that ilk. So Kenny's great. So anybody have any questions for Kenny Loggins or Mark Farner of Grand Funk, formerly of Grand Funk? I'll ask them both about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm sure they'll have heard. Question for Mark. Oh yeah, Nash to Slash. I'm an American band. Yeah. Yeah. That's the band didn't know about that, by the way. Yeah, it was that was an odd situation. When I first heard that, I'm going, why is Nash to Slash doing that song? I don't know when that was released. I'll look it up here before I let me look it up, folks. It's rare when I look up something when I'm doing a live feed. It's just rare. I can't see when Nash, I don't think it shows when Nash to Slash released it. But that was of course a Don Brewer song. I asked Don. I asked Don Brewer because he sang it if he'd heard Nash Slash's version, and he said no. I said, you don't know about Nash Slash doing "I'm an American Band"? And he said no, because we're an American band when they did it, but so he didn't know about it. And I'm going, oh, okay. I'm not sure how you'd not know, but he's obviously telling the truth. I don't think they're getting along. No. I talked to them, I think, a week apart. I was first given an interview with Dawn because they were releasing a live album or something. Grand Funk were. And then I thought I should get Mark Farner. And I had a friend, Lori, who worked at a festival outside of Windsor. And she got me in with Mark Farner. So I talked to them both, and I put them side by side. And Mark didn't seem to mind. Where I ask him the same question. That's documentary style, right? You ask three. If you have like 10, I'm interviewing all the guys, well, 3 guys from Triumph. Mike tomorrow. Rick I've talked to many times. But anyway, and I'll ask them the same question and see what they say, right? And it's usually, you'll wait, say, oh, he's telling the beginning of the story, then it's just documentary style. It's a lot of work, though. It's just, instead of having all 3 of them together at the same time, even though people like that, because look at, they're all together. I'll have 3 hours of an interview as opposed to maybe an hour. If you're lucky, you can get an artist for an hour. Like I told you, Boston's not in, no. And that would be interesting because Fran can't play anymore because he had problems with his hands, the bass player. Barry would be able to play. Sib is dead, but Jimmy Messina is still alive, the original drummer. Brad's dead. So right there's 3 guys wouldn't be able to play because they're dead, right? So Sib and Brad are died. Fran can't play. You're left with Jim, who was on the album, who originally played drums on all the Boston stuff. The final cut, he played drums in Rock and Roll Band and came back for third stage. We just interviewed him. Barry Goudreau would play in a second, and Tom, but there's been so many lawsuits between them, who knows what would happen. Anyway, guys, I've got to do research for last chance, final call for questions for Kenny Loggins today. I'm interviewing him in a couple of hours. And Mark Farner of Grand Funk, they're both coming on screen. So if you have questions, give me questions. And even, okay, if I stop this broadcast, just say the questions in the comment section, and I'll get to them. And if I can ask them the question, like I said before, I wouldn't do it because I thought when broadcasters ask, hey, do you have any questions for them? They're not doing their homework, but some of you guys come up with better questions than I even thought of. So guys, take care of yourself, okay?